What is the illegal sex trade of women? Women's sex trafficking are the acts of women being forced into sexual activities. The illegal sex trade is one of the top 3 largest industries in the world. The ILO estimates that today 1.35 million people are trapped in the sex trade. 98% of those are females. Very few women enter the sex trade willingly and knowing the nature of the work. Women are even sold off by parents and/or husbands or shipped in from other countries. Some are offered a good job, education, or citizenship. Others are offered a false marriage proposal. These things turn into leverage to force women into the industry.
Where does the sex trade of women happen? The illegal sex trade happens everywhere in our society. Street prostitution and other public places like spas and strip clubs. Half of all women in Canada have experienced sexual or physical assault since age 16. Although it happens everywhere, many of the poor and unstable countries have the highest. The most popular areas for it are Asia, Europe, the UK, Vietnam, and Nigeria. This is because there are more people in these countries trying to escape poverty and acquire assets. Also, some cultures don't practice gender equality and believe women's bodies are to be used for the pleasure of others. Victims commonly come from Poland, Romania, Albania, Nigeria, and slavery generally comes across the UK.
What does United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime think about this? If a woman is recruited by forms of threat or force, they consider it sex or slave trade. $7 billion are spent in Canada annually to deal with this sexual assault.
How has the government taken action on this issue? The government wants to work towards ending the sex trade for good. Laws forbidding the sale of sex places fear into the buyers and makes it much harder for traffickers to conduct business. Canada is one of the first countries to endorse the protocol to prevent, suppress, and prevent trafficking in persons, especially women and children. The government assesses past cases, trying to find patterns to track future trafficking. They monitor vulnerable areas where women's sex trafficking is most likely to happen. Government-located victims of sex trade are removed and provided counseling. The government is doing everything they can, but they fail to reach all women that are victimized. And the trade will never be completely shut down until the buyers realize the wrong they are doing and stop giving the industry business.
How does the illegal sex trade affect these women? These women trapped suffer through physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. The physical abuse is a beating that comes from many traffickers, corrupt buyers, or self-harm. The emotional abuse comes from how traffickers and buyers talk to them, calling them nasty, provocative names like they deserve no respect. Women feel trapped, and often it leads to them losing hope for themselves and turning to drugs, self-harm, or alcohol to cope. Putting women through mental and physical torture for others' pleasure is cruel and takes steps backwards in gender equality between men and women.
A A street corner in Turin feels a million miles from the heat of Nigeria and with precious little human comfort. A short drive through this suburb and the roads are dotted with dozens of sex workers. Among them, women who will have paid to come here dreaming of a better life and decent job, tricked by traffickers to make the perilous 2,500-mile journey. Like these women who survived, but only just. They were forced into prostitution before they even got to Italy, in Libya. They all talked of rapes, beatings, and being utterly deprived of any humanity.
I have no choice.
He beat you?
Yes, he beat me. I have no choice. He said, yeah, you don't have mother, you don't have father. I can kill you and throw you away. Nobody will ask her. And it's true. I have no choice.
When two of them became pregnant, they lost their earning potential, so their traffickers got rid of them by forcing them onto boats to Italy, where they would inevitably face further exploitation.
It's dangerous one, and you can get infected with different kind of sickness. You can die in the process, and it's not a good thing to sell out your body because your body is a dignity as a woman.
But safety came for them at the hands of this perhaps unlikely couple. Princess Inyang Okokun was herself trafficked here via London from Nigeria nearly 20 years ago. Alberto, now her husband, was once a paying client. The pair now provide shelter and support for dozens of women they rescue and were invited to address the Vatican conference today about the scale of the challenge. Tell me how bad a problem it is here now, especially in the last couple of years.
We don't have enough shelter homes for these young women, and it's bad because the police are not doing their job. The traffickers are still increasing day by day in order to push the girls to Europe.
9,000 Nigerian women, they come from Libya to Italy. No, the number is too big.
These three young women have just been rescued by Princess's charity after they arrived by boat in Italy. They wanted you to go into prostitution?
Yes, in Libya.
They are hidden from camera for fear their traffickers might find them.
They said they are going to give me a job. I'm going to go to school.
But there was no job?
No job.
And no school?
No school.
What did they expect you to do?
A prostitution.
And did you have to do it?
I have to do it because I have to pay the person. I was like a prisoner.
But on the streets of Turin tonight, there will be women who didn't get away in time. They'll be waiting to escape a life which is no life, held by the invisible chains of their slave masters. And on the shores of Italy, still the boats come. Julie Etchingham, News at 10, Turin.
But when did this issue begin? Using women for sex purposes has been around since knights and castles and before. However, the sex trade became an illegal industry in Paris in 1902. Other countries slowly passed similar laws. Eventually, in 2000, the United Nations criminalized it. But as pornography became more and more easily accessible through the internet, the industry drastically grew. It has now become the fastest growing industry in the world despite it being illegal. This issue began with predominantly men wanting sexual favors from women without any strings attached. In response to this desire, an industry was built where women could be forced to deliver the favors with no strings except a small cash payment.
Why is this horrible issue persisting? This issue persists because the women in the illegal sex trade cannot afford to escape. Most of the women lack the education and job opportunity to be able to leave the sex trade without falling into poverty. But even if women can afford to leave, traffickers go to aggressive extents to make sure they cannot escape. Traffickers will abuse, threaten, and play on women's fears in order to keep them in the industry. Another method to keep the sex trade going is to withhold legal documents from the women. Leaving the trade becomes a risk of being charged and deported for being an illegal resident. In relation to how many women are lured in, very few women ever get to escape the sex trade and experience any normal life and happiness. Because the women always feel alone and trapped, they remain stuck in the industry, and thus the illegal sex trade of women always has the means to continue and respond to the demand.
How does the illegal sex trade affect the common people? Any woman could easily be targeted and abducted right off the streets to be recruited into the industry. All women aren't safe outside their home anymore, and even more unsafe on the internet. The illegal sex trade of women creates an unstable, demanding, and dangerous society for all women in the world. And with men's sexual desires being filled with the abusive trade, more men have less respect for women and are more likely not to show women their due respect. And as far as women all around the world that are or were involved in the illegal sex trade, many carry and spread a variety of STDs and illnesses. Victims also develop depression and social disorders that are very hard to recover from.
These situations are really delicate.
28-year-old Nelifer Hedayat is traveling through Bulgaria on her way to meet with someone most young women fear.
So I've been told that this is the former house of a drug baron who's now in prison. This is where the pimp wants to meet.
She's here to investigate the dark underworld of sex trafficking. And when she comes face to face with a man who spent years as a pimp, he tells her, if I'm looking for a woman to be a prostitute, I don't look at her physical appearance. I look at her character so I can manipulate her more easily. Hedayat doesn't seem to flinch.
So you were never afraid of being caught by the police?
He says, I had protection. Pimps pay police. That's how it works. Though small in stature, or maybe because of it, Hedayat is adept at extracting details about the criminal underworld from the people who conduct business within it.
People want to talk. It's cathartic. They can express or tell a secret that they've been holding for so very long.
We live in a black market world.
What's going on here in these streets is really intense.
Amsterdam's seedy red light district,
God, it is so weird,
is where Hedayat begins her look into trafficking women for the sex industry.
They look quite relaxed. They don't look like they're having a bad time.
The sex industry in Holland is a legal, nearly billion-dollar business. But local authorities admit they suspect many of the women on display in the city's famous windows are being forced to work.
It is big money. If I have a prostitute, I can use it again and use it again to make money. So it's easy money if you compare it to weapons and drugs.
Poor women of color are the most ignored politically, socially, and economically in the world. Nobody cares about these women.
I've just got a message from a girl who says that she's been trafficked and she wants to talk to me.
A local reporter helps Hedayat meet this woman who says she was forced to work as a prostitute for 3 years.
Minimum, I was have to sleep with 30 guys per night.
30 men?
Yeah, my body was so tired.
She says she was sold into prostitution by her grandmother.
How did they break you?
How they break you? They beat you and they rape you.
Her pimp also tattooed his name on her wrist, branding her as his property. In Bulgaria, where she's from, it's estimated as many as 10,000 women and girls are trafficked into sex slavery every year. She leaves Bulgaria to investigate traffickers targeting refugees fleeing Syria, locating an admitted trafficker in Greece.
Plamen says he can provide anything his clients want, from women and girls to newborn babies.
He brags about kidnapping a young Syrian girl.
Do you not care about them as people?
But the conversation unexpectedly turns. He admits he's responsible, but says that complicit cops and a corrupt legal system are more guilty.
You know things have absolutely fallen to pieces when you're siding with a trafficker. I agree with him. I feel like I have no idea what's going on here. I mean, this guy is one of the worst people I've ever met.
But why would he talk?
Because
what does he have to gain?
He explained very clearly and coherently that, yeah, there's bad people like him, but then there's the people who buy his product. Those are normal folk. Those are people who have jobs, wives, husbands, who are fathers and brothers. So who's the bad guy in that situation?
She identifies poverty as the underlying motivator for people who turn to illegal trafficking rings.
Nobody wants to be a poacher. Nobody wants to be a sex trafficker. They just end up there. Given the right opportunities, given the right situation, people will choose good and will want to do good.
An optimist, for sure, but also a realist when it comes to criminal markets around the world.
There is one lesson in every black market, and it's that you and I were culpable.
What message do you want people to take away from the traffickers?
I want people to watch the traffickers and feel responsible for the world around them.
For Nightline, I'm Lindsay Davis in New York.
Concluding,
women are beautiful creations inside and out.
So why do we, as a society, choose to abuse our women and take away their human rights for others' pleasure?
So many women miss out on the joys of life because they got taken advantage of.
Women of all ages deserve the right to live, to be happy, to be free, spiritually and sexually.
Genesis 1:27 says, "Men and women are equal in the sense that they bear God's image equally."